So we're going to talk about Masters of the Universe. And I will say, off the bat, I already did, I sat down and recorded a video discussing the whole release date thing already, because when that happened, I was just like, I gotta say something about this. And so I already put together this whole video. You might have already seen it. If not, you can go check out my entire rant on why I'm skeptical on that whole release date thing and everything. But essentially, just last month, they announced an official release date for the supposed Masters of the Universe live-action movie as December 18th, 2019. Yeah. So on this Masters of the Universe thing, the real topic I want to discuss here with it is the only other real piece of news that has come out since the announcement of the release date,
quote unquote real,
is it's a rumor. This is a rumor, and I want to make sure that is very clear. This is nothing more than a rumor, because this came out and all the news sites picked it up immediately.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I like your Wonder Woman glass. That's nice.
It's your glass.
So all the news sites picked this up right away, but it's definitely a rumor. So this originates from Comic Book Cast. There's a video on YouTube, actually, specifically for this topic. But the whole rumor is that supposedly Sony has a mandate that says that Skeletor cannot appear in the movie as the villain. And in this podcast, the host goes on to basically say that he's a big fan of the property. He knows a lot of people who work on the property and is involved in the property, and they have all told him that this is the mandate that has been delivered down. And then he goes on to say that this is the right move for the movie. This is the way it should be, because basically they want to kind of do that big build-up thing like Marvel's doing with Thanos, where He-Man's going to fight these lesser villains, and eventually down the road in a future movie it'll be Skeletor the whole time. And he basically lays out this whole thing of why he thinks that's a good move. And I just don't agree with him at all. With all due respect to Comic Book Cast, I am about to give you my rebuttal for your entire I'm going to argue. This is going to be my argument against everything that he says in his video. First of all, for no reason at all, I'm going to go ahead and say that I also know lots of people who work on the He-Man property, and I've worked very closely with this property for the last 10 years. There's no reason. I just wanted to say that just because.
And I know him.
That really
he knows those people.
That really doesn't mean anything, because I don't know anybody that's working on this movie. So I will say, this is a rumor. The problem is it's one of those things that I don't put this past Hollywood to do, because especially we've kind of seen the nasty side effect that the Marvel movies have had on Hollywood, because there's all those people who just don't get it, and they kind of see what Marvel's doing and they try to copy it without fully understanding it.
Yep. Or remotely understanding it.
Yeah, exactly. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Hollywood's like, oh, let's plan on a trilogy with He-Man and we'll build up to the big Skeletor thing for the third movie. I think that is a terrible idea. I really, really hate the idea of making a first movie as a setup for movies that you don't even know are going to happen, first of all, because you're going to leave all these unanswered questions, all this stuff that people want to see that they'll never end up seeing. Yep. I think that is just bad marketing. That's a bad move.
Yeah, they look ahead at franchises and they forget that they have to draw an audience in from the get-go to have a franchise.
Right.
Yeah.
So, they keep some of the things, like he was directly comparing this to like Thanos. Like, I think in this podcast he even said something like, they didn't throw Thanos right out there right away in Guardians of the Galaxy, which is funny because they kind of did. Thanos was there, right? He was there
for
in that
sure.
movie.
He was driving the whole plot.
Yeah. And he does kind of mention that Skeletor can just kind of be a puppet master and pulling the strings, but that he wants to see He-Man fight all these lesser villains so that it really fleshes out the world of Eternia. So I'm going to start by saying the one argument that you might be able to make that would fit in line with that is the original concept for the toys before there was a cartoon series. The original concept for the toys was that every character was a master of something. Mm-hmm. And so, Beastman was like the best of his race. Merman was the best of his race. So I guess if you want to look at it from that aspect, I guess Beastman could be the villain if that's the route you want to take. I don't like that because when we're talking about the general audience, people who remember
He-Man, pretty
obscure
source
it is obscure.
To.
That's like a hardcore Masters fan like knowledge thing. Okay, the general audience or the people who remember He-Man remember He-Man versus Skeletor.
Yep.
This is one of those cases that is completely different than your big build-up to Thanos or your big build-up to Darkseid. This is a different scenario, okay? You can't have Optimus Prime without Megatron. Mm-hmm. You can't have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles without the Shredder. You can't have He-Man without Skeletor. Mm-hmm. You just can't.
Yep, they build too much.
The guy in the video here kind of makes it sound like He-Man's got this big rogues gallery. But he doesn't.
And that's what I would, because the closest thing I could think of to where they do sort of do that kind of thing is like Batman and the Joker. Like it's another two characters that can't really exist with each other, but you don't have to start with the Joker every time.
Right.
But that is totally different because Batman does have a rogues gallery. Like specifically, he has people who don't work together, but they all fight him.
Yes.
And they all have their own thing, and they can all be their own threat, and that makes sense. But like you just said, like He-Man doesn't. He-Man has Skeletor, and Skeletor has minions.
Right, exactly. You know? Like those guys work for Skeletor.
Yeah.
And there has been the one-off villain here and there, especially in the old cartoon. But this movie is not going to be He-Man versus Count Marzo. It's not going to be He-Man versus Evil Seed or Chakotay. It's just not. Because that is not the way you market a big-budget Hollywood movie to the general public.
To the defense of this idea, like Skeletor could be the villain without the being the final battle. You know, like way too many of these comic booky type movies end up always killing the villain or somehow doing something like you don't have to get to the end and he destroys Skeletor.
Definitely, he shouldn't kill Skeletor.
They don't even have to really fight in the first one, but Skeletor has to be leading this.
He's got to be the big bad.
Yeah,
and okay, let's just know we know this is going to happen. This is going to be an origin story movie.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to learn how He-Man gets the power of Grayskull. Adam gets the power of Grayskull and becomes He-Man. That doesn't happen without Skeletor being a threat already.
Yep.
Okay? Like, those origins are tied together.
Yeah.
Like, Skeletor has to be there causing some serious problems in order for the Sorceress to reach out and say, it's time for He-Man, because this Skeletor dude's here.
Yep.
So, like, we can't, Adam's not going to learn to become Adam's not going to learn to become He-Man so that he can go fight off Merman. I don't see that.
How unfair is the comparison to begin with when you start talking about the Marvel movies built up to Thanos? Like that's He-Man and Skeletor are essentially equals to some degree. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It's like Thanos is essentially a demigod that it takes a legion of heroes to go up against. That is not the same thing as arch enemies having to build up. You know. And also, if you're going to build up to something in a He-Man universe, why don't you build up to Hordak?
Exactly. That was going to be my next thing. Like if because one of the arguments he makes in this is that they want to maybe have him do the puppet. Pulling the strings, and they build up to the big reveal of him. No, if you need somebody pulling the strings on the other side, you make the big reveal that Hordak is giving Skeletor orders, or Hordak is showing up, and that's a problem for Skeletor and He-Man. And then you do the big evil Horde storyline later down the road, or that's your perfect way to bring She-Ra into the mix if they're able to and want to go that route and introduce She-Ra. Boom, instant sequel material right there, right? Like I
think Sony should call us.
Sony should definitely call people like me or some of the other people in the community that
seriously, I think you could sit down for a weekend and plot out like a 3 to 5 movie arc that is better than anything they're going to get out of David Goyer. For sure.
I'm so sad. So, so there's 3 major villain factions for Masters of the Universe. If they really wanted to do a trilogy and they wanted to, really bring in all these crazy characters, they could find a way to make it work because it's worked in the animation in the past. You have Skeletor and the Evil Warriors, you have the Snake Men with King Hiss, and then you have the Evil Horde with Hordak. I forgot
about the Snake Men.
Yep, those are the 3 major evil factions that are the threat to Eternia, and the fun thing about that is none of them get along.
Yeah.
So you always have and one of my favorite dynamics of all of this is Hordak was always kind of built up as the bigger bad, the guy who used to command Skeletor around. So you kind of have that great thing where, like, Skeletor also hates Hordak.
Yeah.
And then you kind of start rooting for Skeletor because you want Skeletor to be the big bad and not Hordak. And it's just a really great dynamic.
And how, how great would that, just as a trilogy right there, how great would it be if you did, like, Skeletor running the show and He-Man fights, Beastman and Merman and Trapjaw at the end of the first movie. And then the second one, you really rev up the He-Man Skeletor fight, but towards the end you get this glimpse of Hordak.
Yeah.
And then the third one's almost He-Man and Skeletor teaming up
to get rid of the Horde.
Yeah,
Man,
so,
see, and I would be game for something like that.
And that was in 20 seconds.
That would be so much fun.
That we just did that.
That would be so much fun. Yeah, I am not on board with this idea whatsoever. Yeah. And I think it's a bad idea. I don't know if it matters that I think that, because Sony will do whatever they want to do. I really hope that this is nothing but a rumor.
Well, again, on the bright side, nothing's moving forward with this movie anyway. So even if this is a rumor that is founded in any reality, the only thing that you know for sure at this point is that this won't be what happens.
Yeah.
Because things are going to change a lot between now and then.
I agree. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm completely crazy, or do you agree with me? I know that
I think you just love He-Man, dude.
I do. I really
do.
I'm super passionate about it, but that's one of the things with this fan base. Like, there's actually so many stories and so many different, like, Masters of the Universe is kind of one of those things where there's so many different, like, forms of media for it, so they've kind of all got their own different things. You've got, like, the original toy line kind of storyline and the original mini comics. You've got the Filmation cartoon series. You've got the 2003 cartoon series, which kind of redid things a little bit. So everybody kind of, like, picks and chooses, like, their favorite parts of those.
You've got that Dolph Lundgren movie.
The Dolph Lundgren movie. Yeah. You got the current DC comics, which I'm not really paying much attention to, which I probably should be. But
I'm a little shocked.
Well, I didn't really like the first. I didn't really like the first story arc, so I kind of just bailed on it. Yeah,
there you go.
But supposedly it's gotten better. Everybody keeps telling me it's gotten a lot better. But that's what I mean. Like, everybody kind of has their different pieces of He-Man that they like, or that they think. There's a section of the fan base who is very true to the original mini comic storyline, where Prince Adam wasn't a thing. He was just He-Man, a barbarian around all the time. So some of those fans might actually be on board with this idea, because that was kind of more of a barbarian fighting crazy monsters kind of a storyline. You know what I mean? Like, Skeletor was still there and still a bad guy, but that was also,
I will say, and I don't think you'll agree, and I get that because of the passion for it. Like, you can still make a cool movie out of some of these dumb storylines.
You could.
But it won't be a He-Man movie, you know what I mean? It won't be like...
And that's, when you're doing a big Hollywood movie like this, you have to do what's going to appeal to the general audience, and you have to try to appeal to that nostalgia factor for that fan base who grew up with He-Man. Mm-hmm. And what that means, what the general public is going to expect, is they're going to expect to see Prince Adam turn into He-Man, they're going to expect to see Orko and Battle Cat, they're going to expect to see Skeletor. You have to give them that stuff.
Orko could be like the best or worst thing of the year as far as cinema goes.
I want Orko in a movie. I hope they do Orko.
They have to do it in a movie. I'm just saying, like, between effects and interpretation, man, like, that could be the coolest looking little wizard guy imaginable, or that could straight up be the next Jar Jar.
Well, that's why we got Gwildor in the first movie, is because they didn't have the way to do Orko. Yep. So they made Gwildor instead, basically. And that's also why that movie took place on Earth. They didn't have a budget to do Eternia.
Exactly.
So, this time around, we could get Eternia, we could get Battle Cat, we could get Orko, we could get all the crazy-looking characters, but Skeletor has to be there.
Yeah.
He has to be.
To some level.
I mean, to me, Skeletor is just as much Masters of the Universe as He-Man is. I love that character. Yep. He is my favorite, like, villain out of everything, and I will be so bummed out if he's not there.
There's no reason to save him. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. Definitely.
Like I said, he's not the guy you build to. He's the guy who's always there as the foil.
Yes.
And there's plenty of things you can build to without wasting time not having him in your movie.
I agree. Put Skeletor in that movie, Sony.
Where's the petition?
Yeah, well, that's right. Let's start a petition for something we don't even know is actually fact